Hi, welcome everybody. My name is John Harding. I'm an engineering manager at YouTube, responsible for our APIs and tools, among some other things. And what I'm going to be talking about today is how you can bring YouTube onto your own website. So the big idea, what we're going to cover, basically everything that people can do on YouTube, our goal is to try to make it so they can do that on your own website, within your own community, within your own UI. So what can you do on YouTube? Everybody already knows you can watch video on YouTube, and you've been able to do this on your site already by using our embeddable players, slapping that onto your page, and watching video. But what you can now do is more active discovery of content on your own site. So you can do search, you can find related videos. Again, all the ways that people will find content to watch on YouTube, they can do on your site. And users can manage their content. They can manage their favorites, update playlists, subscribe to videos. Again, the same stuff they're doing on YouTube, they can do within your site. And most importantly, and most recently, users can upload to YouTube through your site. And what this is going to let you do is use YouTube as your video provider. You get the playback, you get the upload, you get the user experience on your site, and we handle the hosting and streaming of video. So just to give you a quick overview of how we're going to get there, I'm going to do a quick refresher on Google Data API, and then we'll dive right into YouTube. We kind of break things up into three sections for our YouTube APIs. We sort of have the read-only operations, which are really lightweight, really easy to deal with. Then you start getting into read-write, where you're modifying user data. There's a little bit more complication there. And then upload is the most interesting. So quick show of hands, who's used a Google Data API before in the audience? So a couple people, not too many. There's plenty of talks on the Google Data API in general, as well as specific product APIs at the conference. So if you are a little more curious about the workings of Google Data, I'd encourage you to check out some of the other talks. For those of you who don't know it or who need a refresher, Google Data APIs are based on the Atom Publishing Protocol. They use a RESTful design, so that means that basically you can use pretty much any HTTP stack to deal with the API. And the data that comes back, or that you send to us, is typically represented as an Atom XML feed, an RSS XML feed, or you can use JSON as well. As I mentioned, they use standard HTTP. This means that all you really need to operate them is something with an HTTP stack. This even means a browser. So if you just want to start playing around with the APIs, seeing what data you can get access to, you can just use Firefox, IE, Safari, type in a URL, and you'll get back the response. We use the different HTTP commands to indicate what operation you want to perform. Get is what you're most often used to with HTTP to retrieve a resource, as well as post to create a resource. But the Google Data APIs also use put for updating a resource and delete for removing one. Now within the YouTube API, we have a couple different types of responses or types of feeds that we offer. The most common one is going to be a feed of videos. This is YouTube's primary set of data, so that's what most of our APIs deal with. But we have a couple other kinds of feeds that we'll return from our APIs that you might want to be prepared for. So users can subscribe to videos within the site, and so we have a feed that will return the set of subscriptions the user has created. Users can also build playlists, which are similar to subscriptions in that they're a list of other feeds. We also expose the user's contacts. So these are their friends, their address book that they've built up on the site, and a contact is a different type of entry. As well as comments, which are just simple text comments. And finally, user profile data. User profile is a little bit unusual in that it's not actually a feed. There's only one entry there, so we just return a single entry. Now for read operations, you can pretty much read anything on YouTube. Most information on YouTube is publicly available. So this means if you're on YouTube and you're looking at another user's channel, you can usually see their favorites, you can usually see their playlists, what videos they've uploaded, and the same permissions apply through the API. So you can typically read almost any information. There is some information that is private. So a user may have videos they've uploaded which are private, only available to a small set of users. And so those will only be available with authentication. The other main one is playlists can be marked private, in which case they are not publicly available. Once you get into modifying data, whether that's uploading videos, posting a comment, or simply adding a rating, we do require authentication. So any operation that's going to perform a modification does require you to log the user in. And we'll cover login later on. As I mentioned, video feeds are the most common type of data that we have in the API. And a video feed is simply a set of videos. So some common cases where you're going to get a video feed: if you're doing a search operation, the results will be represented as a video feed. If you're getting what we call our standard feeds, this is the popular content, most viewed, top rated, etc. Again, those are just a collection of videos, and they come back as a video feed. And when you're trying to find new content, related videos, for example, that again comes back as a set of videos. Slightly less common, but still useful, are if you're retrieving a user's favorites, uploads, or the contents of a playlist that they've created. Again, those are all video feeds. And finally, video responses. So the set of video responses to a video is, again, a video feed. So what I want to do is, I'm kind of a down-to-the-metal guy, and we have client libraries that make a lot of this easier, but I want to walk you through what's actually going on when we're returning you a feed. And this is useful, too, if you're ever debugging, or if you're just playing around in the browser, you're going to see the XML. So it's a little dense when you look at it there, so I'm going to kind of go bit by bit and highlight some of the interesting parts. So up top, you can see we have just a standard XML and Atom Publishing Protocol feed header. So XML header is quite standard. There you see the feed. We use a number of different namespaces for elements within our feeds, and so you'll see the declarations for XML namespaces up top. And then every feed and every entry has an ID. This is a unique identifier for that feed or that entry. It's often, but not always, the same as the URL that you use to retrieve the feed, so that's something to take note of. One of the things I really want to stress is that we have a number of different APIs, and it's sometimes a little complicated to either generate URLs to use them and to navigate between them, or to understand the relationship. And so what we do with Google Data APIs is we actually embed links within our responses for you to find other feeds that you might be interested in. So in this case, what we're looking at here is, if I go back, you can see we're looking at the most viewed standard feeds. This is the most viewed videos of all time. And I'm only going to get a certain set of results. If I want to get the next page of results, you don't have to worry about keeping track of the numbers, how many results are left. We'll provide you a link within the feed to say, if you want more results, here's the URL to fetch. If there are no more results, this link will not be there. And so by taking advantage of these related links, you can really simplify your handling of the protocol. The next section I want to highlight is the open search elements. This is how we actually tell you where you are within a set of results. Fairly straightforward by their names. Total results is the number of total results available. Start index and items per page is to help you with navigating through the results. One of the things that I want to stress is that, particularly when performing search operations, that total results number is an approximation. It's not necessarily an exact, accurate number. And again, that's why we recommend that you go through those related links so that you can know, here's where to get more search results, or here's how to get the previous page, because that total results number may be an approximation. So that's all the information that's specific to the feed as a whole, and then we get into individual entries. Okay. So within an entry, that was good timing too. Within an entry, the first things you're going to see up top, you've got a title, you've got the author, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of data further on. So let's dig in a little bit more into a single entry. We use a couple different categories to describe the content of YouTube videos. Here you're going to see two of the three that we use on videos, and we'll cover the third one a little bit later. The first one is the keywords category. And the data here is just going to correspond to the set of keywords the user entered when they uploaded. In this case, the video's evolution of dance. He specified a keyword of dancing. There can be multiple keywords specified for a video, so you may see several of them. The second category is the YouTube category that this video was uploaded into. So in this case, he chose comedy. Could have been sports, maybe. But there will be only one category for each video on YouTube. So multiple keywords, one category. As we saw earlier, you get the title of every video, and the content is going to be the description that the user specified for their video. Depending on the projection, which we'll get to a little bit later, there are multiple formats that you can request the content to be provided in. In this case, you can see we're getting plain text. One thing to be prepared for is some people put very, very, very lengthy descriptions of their videos. So definitely be prepared for very short descriptions or very long ones. And then again, we're going to have more of these related links that are useful for navigation. So if you want to be able to provide a link to the YouTube watch page for a video that you've gotten from the API, we give that in the alternate link. This way you don't have to worry about YouTube changing the URL scheme on the website or generating the URL yourself. You can just pull it out of here. Other common related links within a video entry are going to be for responses. So if people have posted video responses to the video, you can retrieve those, as well as being able to get related content to that video. Next up is what we have in the media group element. So we do use the media RSS namespace for media-related tags within our video entries. This is where all the information related to actual playback or display of the videos is going to show up. So one of the things that's most useful, you probably want to be able to play the video on your site. And so what you want to look for is this media content tag. And within here, we're going to provide you access to the embeddable player for this video. So that's going to be in the URL. We give you the MIME type. We give you the duration. All these are fairly standard media RSS attributes and tags. One of the things I do want to call attention to is that we are starting to provide YouTube videos in a variety of formats. And so we actually indicate within media content what the format is, because the MIME type isn't always enough to specify it. YT format 5 means the embeddable flash player. So this is what you're primarily going to be interested in when you're building a website. Alternately, if you just want to send the user to YouTube to watch the video, again, we provide the watch page as the media player link. So within media RSS, the player element is supposed to give you a page you can go to watch the content. We also provide thumbnails. I've kind of simplified the entry here to make it all fit onto one screen, or 3 screens. So there are multiple thumbnails that we provide, and you get access to all of them. I'm only showing one here just to give you an example. But you can see we'll give you the dimensions for the thumbnail. So if thumbnail dimensions change over time, you won't be surprised, as well as the time within the video at which the thumbnail was taken. So this way, if you want to select which thumbnail to show or show all of them, you get access to that. We also provide you a variety of statistics about the video. So view count, how many times it's been favorited. Those are sort of YouTube-specific statistics. For ratings, there's a Google data tag that's common across our APIs that will show you what the rating is, how much it's been rated. You actually get a little bit more detail here than you might even get on the web page. The last thing I want to point out is the use of feed links within Google Data. This is similar to a related link that might show up in a link element, but it allows us to specify a little bit more information so that you don't have to actually fetch the target of the link. In this case, for comments, you may want to be able to see how many comments there are for a video without having to fetch the feed and get that total results. So with the feed link, we can provide a hint of how many elements are in this feed. And in the future, we may inline embed the first couple entries of this feed. OK, so that's the actual data that kind of gives you a feeling of what information is accessible via the APIs. And now I'm going to walk through a couple of these video feed APIs so you can see how they'd be used. Search is probably the first one you're going to be interested in. We have a couple different parameters that we provide for managing search queries. The most useful is going to be the VQ parameter. This is how you specify the query. So whatever you would specify for a standard search, if you're going to type it in the search box, you put the same thing there. We give you a couple different ways that you can order your results. The default is relevance, but we also offer published, which means the date that the video was uploaded to YouTube, most recent first. You can order by view count, so the things that have been watched most will show up top, as well as rating, so the highest rated content will come up top. When we've started internationalizing the APIs, we wanted to expose, again, some internationalization features to API developers. And so part of our search optimization is we can support relevance targeted to a specific language, and we actually pass that functionality through to you. So if you know that your site is mainly going to be used in France, or you know that a given user speaks French, you could actually say, I want results ordered by relevance for the French language rather than on a global scale. If instead you want to say, I only want results in a language, you can use the language restriction parameter. And that will say, only give me results that have content in this language. At the moment, this only operates on the text metadata that we have for the video. not on the spoken languages within the video. The last one that's useful is being able to filter for formats. So as I mentioned, we're making multiple formats available. If you wanted to say, only show me embeddable videos, you'd want to specify format 5, and will only return results that have that format available. As you may know, if you've uploaded videos to YouTube yourself, when you upload, you can say that I don't want this video to be embeddable on third-party sites. I only want it on YouTube. And so this way, we allow you to respect the uploader's choice that they only want an embeddable video on YouTube. So I have a couple examples here. The first one, simple query. Maybe we like lolcats and we wanted to search for some lolcat videos. Order by rating on the second one. We'll put the highest rated videos first instead of the most relevant. And then finally, that third query is going to show us music videos, but restrict it to only ones that are embeddable so that I know I can put that embeddable player on my site. Now, we've talked about all of these in the context of performing a general search, but most of these queries and filters and parameters can be applied to any API, any feed that we have within the YouTube APIs. Another popular feed is what we call our standard feeds. So as I mentioned, these are the popular content lists that we have on YouTube. You can think of it as the equivalent of that videos tab on YouTube, where you can pick most viewed, top rated, recently featured. That list of feeds is growing over time, and the API has been keeping up with them. Some of these lists operate a little bit differently. So some of these you can slice by time windows. So you may be able to say, I want to see most viewed videos that were uploaded this week. But not all of them. So check the documentation to see which feeds have time slices and which ones don't. It's usually pretty obvious. Recently featured, time slicing doesn't make sense because they're editorially selected. All of these feeds are actually then broken down further by region. So by default, you're going to get the globally most viewed or globally top rated. But if you want to say, show me the most discussed videos in Spain, we can do that, and you just specify the region code for that region. They're also broken down by category. So all those standard YouTube categories, we regenerate the same list for each category. So for every feed, time slice, country, category, you can get that specific set of results. So it actually gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you're discovering this content. So again, some examples. And again, if you have a laptop, you can just throw these in your browser right now and take a look. So the first one, we're just going to get globally featured videos. Pretty straightforward. But say I wanted to get most viewed videos in Spain, just put in ES as the country code. Or if I wanted top-rated videos that were uploaded today in France, I can do that. And then finally, that last one will show a sports category, what's been top-rated in sports. One of the things I want to point out, just because it occasionally causes confusion, is these time parameters don't necessarily mean was it most viewed today. It refers to when the video was uploaded. And so if I say that third one, top-rated time today, means what are the top-rated videos that were uploaded today, not what has been rated highest today. The last one of the video feeds that I'm going to go into in detail is related videos. Again, this is very popular. People discover videos quite frequently on YouTube by using that list of related videos on the side. And so again, this is something useful we wanted to let you do on your site. You can either pull that related link out of the entry you were looking at, or the URL pattern is pretty straightforward. The response is just like everything else. It's one of those video feeds with a set of videos, in this case ordered by our related rating. So with that, I want to give you a quick little demo. So I've thrown together a simple App Engine site. And if you are sticking around for the afternoon, we have a code lab that will walk you through using the YouTube APIs using App Engine. So what I've done here is I have the home page for my demo site. And I wanted to pick a couple videos to show on the front page. To make sure I'm getting good content, what I said was, well, let me pick some content from those standard feeds. Something most viewed, something highly rated, something featured. I can also say search. So let's say I want to search for YouTube APIs. Kind of relevant. I'm going to get my set of results back. And on my site, I've chosen to show all of the thumbnails for a video, because I think maybe that's a little bit more useful for my users. So it's kind of showing you that you get a lot more flexibility in how you're presenting the search results or how you're presenting results from any of the APIs that we have. Now, what's more interesting than looking at my not too polished developer site is looking at the code that's actually necessary to generate this. Is that text showing up okay? Can you guys actually see this text? I just had to add this slide because my code editor wasn't working before. Yes? Okay. So we've got a couple helper functions I want to show. Again, as I mentioned, we have client libraries to make this easier, but I'm kind of a down-to-the-metal guy. So I have a little helper function that will let me make a HTTP GET request to the API servers. And up top, I'm just setting up headers. We're going to talk about authorization later on. And then down below is my helper routine for parsing out videos from the video feed. So it simply iterates over every entry and parses out some relevant fields from the XML. The part that's more interesting is how I use this. So that home page, I said I wanted to get a couple entries out of some of the different standard feeds. And so I have a simple function that will retrieve some number of videos out of a standard feed. I grab one from most viewed, one from top rated, one from featured, and then I have a little, just simply format the display to HTML. The way we do that, as I mentioned before, the standard feeds all have that symbol URL prefix, feeds/standard feeds. And then I simply apply what the name of the feed is. So whether that's most viewed, top rated. Up here, these fields here are simply string constants. So it's a little bit more readable. Then I make my request, parse out the entries, and I'm done. Search operates basically the same, except in this case, maybe I have a form and I'm getting the query out of that form. And my get search results call looks surprisingly similar to my get standard feeds call. I simply build up that URL. In this case, I have the videos feed, and I append my search query. Down here, I may actually append a category if I want to search within a category, and then simply make the request and build my video list. So what you're going to notice if you are coding directly to the protocol is that you're going to have a lot of similarity in your function calls. Or if you're using the client library, this is part of the power of the client library, is that because all the Google Data APIs have similar protocols, all the client libraries can operate similarly, and there's a lot of commonality. So search is great, standard feeds is great, people love doing that. But one of the great things about YouTube is personalization. The value of YouTube is not that everybody watches the same 100 videos. The value is that I find the 100 videos that I'm most interested in. And so there are a number of different ways that you can personalize the YouTube experience on the site. And again, we expose those to you through our APIs. Subscriptions, so I can subscribe to a variety of content that I might be interested in and get notified as it updates. I can build my own playlists, either for myself or to share with others. Same thing for favorites. You can think about favorites as just an unnamed playlist. And then I can upload my own videos, have my friends on YouTube, and share them with my contacts. So subscriptions, as I mentioned, there are a couple different types of subscriptions you can have. Within the API, we expose subscriptions to a channel, which means I want to subscribe to all the videos that get uploaded to a user's channel. I can subscribe to somebody's favorites, so every time they mark a video as favorite, that'll show up in my subscription. And then I can subscribe to a search query, so that if new videos get uploaded that match that query, those will show up in my subscription. When you're fetching a user subscription, you want to be able to differentiate what types of subscriptions they have. And so again, we use a category to indicate whether this is a channel subscription, a favorites, or a search query subscription. In addition to the type, they have different things that you're subscribing to. If I'm subscribing to a channel or favorites, I'm subscribing to a user, and you'd like to know what that user is. Whereas if I'm subscribing to a search query, there's a term, and you'd want to know what that term is. So we provide those in the subscriptions as well. One thing to point out, the YouTube website recently added the ability to subscribe to users' playlists. That's not yet available in the API, but we're working on it. So again, digging into the actual data that's coming back, here I'm looking at the subscriptions feed. So this is going to return me multiple subscriptions that this user has. The first one up here, if we look at the category of the subscription, it's saying it's a channel. So that means in this case, I've subscribed to Lonely Girl 15's uploads. Every time there's a new video in that series, it will show up in that subscription. If we want to look at the contents of that, I can get the GD feed link, and that's going to point me at Lonely Girl 15's uploads. Alternately, maybe I had a search query. In this case, I've subscribed to videos with the term Virginia Tech in them. So you can see the category is saying it's a query, and again, I have the target there available. And if you look at the feed link that will give me the contents, you can see it's just the same thing that I could have put in as a search to the search API. So that's showing you how all these different feeds are interrelated, that the subscriptions feed is just going to point you at a user uploads feed, or a favorites feed, or a search query feed. Playlist is kind of similar. I may have multiple playlists. Each individual playlist is going to have its own title, its own description, its own tags that I can specify, and then again, a reference to the content of that playlist. This kind of gives you an idea. For individual playlists, this is really the only way to discover them. You can't generate a URL like you could just generate a URL for Lonely Girl 15's uploads. So when you want to show the user's playlists, this is how you'll enumerate them. If you were to follow that feed link, then you're going to get into the playlist contents. Playlist contents are basically like any other video feed. The exception is that they have an ordering specified by the user. So each entry in a playlist is going to have a position element to tell you where it falls. Now, when you fetch it, they're going to be in the right order, so you don't really care. But this comes into play when you want to update the playlist. So if you're providing a playlist editor to your users, you would modify these position elements to reorder the playlist. Finally, favorites and user uploads. Again, because these get similar, I start stripping out the examples because you don't want to see the same code in XML over and over again. So you can fetch the user's favorites. You can fetch the user's uploads. What's a little bit interesting when you're fetching uploads is that, again, as I mentioned, users can have private videos, but some videos may not have successfully processed on the site. Some videos may have been taken down for various reasons. So if the user is not logged in when you're using the API, you're only going to see live public videos. If they are logged in, you'll see everything. You'll see videos that are still being processed. You'll see videos that failed processing, etc. So we'll do another quick demo. You can see that because all of the data is basically the same, I've used the same UI functions within my demo site to format the results. Let me do a quick run through of what happens now if I want to access private information, I need to log in. We'll talk about this a little bit more. I just kind of want to give you a quick run through of saying this is what a user is going to see when they want to access when you want to allow your site to access their account. So now if I wanted to look at my uploads, I can do that. So this is all the videos that I have uploaded down here. You can see I have a lot of videos of my dogs. Or similarly, my favorites. Now, as I mentioned, in this case, I'm logged in. I've granted my demo site permission to access my account. Uploads and favorites, for the most part, are available to the public. So it's not necessary to log in. You could just ask for their username and fetch their favorites that way. So these code samples are getting shorter and shorter since I don't have any more helper functions to show you. The first one up there is simply me fetching favorites. One of the things I want to point out is that if a user is logged in, you can actually just specify default as their username, and all the API operations will operate on that logged in user. So this way, it can save you some boilerplate URL generation. In this case, to get favorites, it's a simple request. I don't need any parameters. I don't even need the username, because I have that from them being logged in. And I simply just fetch that URL, parse the results. Uploads works the exact same way. If I wasn't logged in, I would just specify their username instead of default, but basically pretty trivial. One of the things that you've seen in these little code samples is that /feed/API. And what we have for the API is different projections. These allow you to get just the information that you care about, or to get the information formatted in the way you want. What's the most common projection is our API projection. So this gives you all of the relevant data for somebody who wants to use the API, but most of the data is formatted as plain text instead of HTML, because we assume that you're going to reformat it on your site when you're doing display. The base projection is basically the same set of responses, but information is formatted as HTML. So this is useful if you are building perhaps a feed reader and you don't want to actually regenerate HTML for each entry. You can use the HTML descriptions that we have. And then finally, we have a mobile projection that's customized for mobile devices. So these responses are more compact. We've stripped out some elements that are probably not as useful for mobile devices, which helps that if you're on a slow connection, the response size really matters. Okay, so everything up to here you've been able to get and do without having users log in. So why should you care about doing the extra work to have users sign in on your site? There's a lot of restricted information that only users can get when they're signed in. So private videos that they may have or that others may have given them access to. Private playlists, we've already talked about. The inbox. So users can share videos with each other on the site. And I can say, oh, I like this video. I want to send it to my friends. It will show up in their inbox on the site. And the API actually allows you to access that as well. And then finally, if you're doing upload in particular, it's important for you to be able to see the status of videos as they're being processed. Sign-in is also required if you're going to perform any kind of write operation. So all write operations are done on behalf of a user, so we have to have you signed in so we know what user that is. So any of the modifications, some things that you may not think about, rating is actually a write operation on behalf of a user, so they need to be signed in. And then obviously, if you're uploading or managing videos, you need to be signed in. We have two ways to sign in. I'll go over them a little bit briefly. I'm going to focus on Auth, which is for web applications. If you do need more detail about authentication, there are other talks at the conference about it. But primarily, web applications use Auth. What happens here is that the user is going to log in on a Google web page, not on your web page. This is nice because the user trusts Google with their Google account and Google password. So they don't have to worry about, is it safe for me to put my password into this other site? Once they've logged in, their browser is going to get redirected back to your site with a token that you can use to operate on their behalf. If you have a installed application, a PC app or a native Mac app, where you don't necessarily have a browser UI that you can use, we do have client login. And in this case, the user will put their name and password directly into your app. You'll make a request, and you're going to get back, in this case, a temporary authentication token. We prefer web apps to use Auth. It's a more secure scenario for the user because they know that their credentials go directly to Google or to YouTube rather than through some third party. So that's what we're going to focus on for this talk. Now, when you're making an Auth request, there's a couple pieces of information you need to provide. The first one is, where do you want us to send the user back when they're done? So this will need to be a URL on your site. What is the set of operations you want to perform? So the scope says, here's the namespace of APIs I'm going to call. For the YouTube APIs, that's gdata.youtube.com. And those last two parameters are basically specifying, do you need a one-time operation, or do you need a permanent token? And then secure specifies whether or not you're going to make secure signed requests later on. For the details of that, probably go to the authentication talk. It's not as important for this discussion. So that graphic down below kind of shows you the flow of what happens. What will happen is your web app, you're going to direct the user to the authentication page. They're going to go here, access, log in if they have to, grant permission to your site, and they'll get redirected back to your application. After that, you're simply making the request to our service using that token. Now, what will come back from Auth initially is always a one-time use token. So if you want a one-time token, go ahead and use it. If you want a permanent token, there's an API to convert that into a permanent session token, which you'll then store in whatever your persistent data store is. Either way, when you're using the token, you specify an HTTP header authorization, and you pass the token there so that we know what user you're working on behalf of. So we provide full write access to all of the user's data on YouTube. As I said, every time you're performing a write, you have to have them logged in. You have to give us that auth token. For write operations, we also require you, the developer, to register your application with YouTube. So we have a developer dashboard for the YouTube APIs where you can sign up for a developer key. We encourage you to sign up if you have multiple products. Get multiple developer keys, one for each product. And then when you're making the request, in addition to that auth sub authorization header, you send extra headers with your developer key and your identifier that come from that dashboard. Simply, if you went back to that sample I had before when I was setting up my authorization headers, this is what that code was doing. It was taking that auth header, and it was taking the developer key I'd registered for, and adding those to every request I make on the API. Now, these are required for write operations, but it's simpler and easier just to pass them on for all operations. Most of what you're going to be doing when you're doing writes is probably creating new entries. You want to add a new favorite, you want to create a new playlist or add something to it, or you want to create a new subscription, etc. So post is going to be the most common write operation that you'll perform. The easiest way to do this is, if you want to add a favorite, take the entire video entry that you got, that you have the user watching, and just post that to their favorites feed. I'll give you an example coming up. But one thing I want to point out is there are a couple feeds that are write only, which seems a little bit odd on the surface. But ratings, we don't give you every user's rating of every video. So you can post and write a rating for one user, but you can't read back. And then similarly, complaints. We do allow people to flag videos as inappropriate through the API, and those are write only. You can't read back the full set of complaints. It's not mentioned here. The inbox is a little unusual too. A user can read their own inbox, and they can write to anybody's inbox. So if I want to share a video with Jeff, I would post to his inbox, which I can do even though I'm not Jeff. So a simple example, this is actually the entire HTTP transaction that needs to go on for writing a favorite. You can see I'm posting to the user's favorite feeds. Say I'm logged in as the Google developer's account. You can see the three headers that we have there, my developer key, my client identifier, and my authorization token. And then this is Adam that I'm pushing. Now, in this case, I've simplified the video entry. The only thing that we really care about for posting a favorite is what video are you adding to the user's favorites. So you can simplify the data that you post, but ultimately you could actually take that entire entry and post it if that's easier. So that's pretty straightforward for a post. The other write operations work pretty similarly, but I want to dig into upload, which is a little bit more unusual, and it's going to take a bit longer to cover. So we have two models of upload. The first we call direct upload. This is typically most useful for installed applications. So if you're writing video editing software on the PC and you want to upload, you would use direct upload. There's no need to launch a browser for that. The case where it's useful for web applications is, say you're creating a video remix web app where you already have the video on your server. There's no reason to have you download the video to the user just to have them upload it back to us. You can publish straight to us. But what we think is a little bit more common is that the user has the video on their machine, they want to upload it. There's no need for them to bounce that video to your server just to have you turn around and send it back to us. And so we have a system where your web app, you can control the metadata, and you can even specify some private metadata that we'll get into. But the user will upload the video directly to us and then get directed back to your site, kind of like how auth works. And this way, you don't have to worry about the bandwidth of the video coming in and then going back out. Now, as I said, there's a little bit of private information that we allow you, the developer, to specify when people are uploading video through your site or through your application. And we call these developer tags. And these are useful if you want to be able to track what uploads are happening through your site. So these are not displayed on YouTube. They're only available to you with your developer key. And they allow you to specify your own taxonomy to organize videos that are uploaded through your site. So in this case, I have two that I've specified. This is that third video category I was talking about earlier. So we had keywords, we had the YouTube category, and we have developer tags. So in this case, I'm specifying, maybe I have my own usernames on my site, and I want to associate my username with that video so that later on I can say, show me the videos that John uploaded on my site. I can specify that with one tag there. And say I have my own categories, or say I just want to be able to differentiate test videos. I can specify another developer tag to distinguish those. So I'll give you a quick direct upload example. As I mentioned, this is mainly only useful if your application already has access to the video. You simply post a multi-part post to the user's upload feeds. One thing to highlight, because uploads take a while to process, we actually send them to a separate destination. So instead of gdata.youtube.com, all uploads go to uploads.gdata.youtube.com. And this allows us to keep better response time on most of the API calls versus file uploads, which are going to take a long time. So for direct upload, my standard HTTP header is up top, and then I simply pass in a video entry, which is going to contain the metadata of the video, the same thing you see when you fetch one, the title, the description, the category. And then in the second part of this post, I'm going to have the binary data of the file. So direct upload is pretty straightforward, but browser upload is where it gets a little interesting. Kind of like AuthSub, you've got some interaction between your website, our website, and the user's browser. So the first two steps, you need some way of getting metadata from the user. You're actually free to provide metadata yourself, but usually the user wants to enter in their title and description. So you'll give them a web form. They'll submit the data back to you. That's pretty simple. What you're going to do then is take that metadata, add any of your own developer tags that you want to specify, adjust the metadata if you need to, and you'll send that to our API servers. And we'll hand you back a URL that is where you want the video to end up going to, and an encrypted blob that's going to have your developer tags and that metadata. This is how we ensure that once you've locked down that metadata, the title, the description, and your developer tags, the user can't tamper with it when they send the upload to us. So you just pass this token through to them, and they'll send it back. So once you've got that token, you'll now present them a new form that will allow them to pick the file that they want to upload. You put that token we gave you as a hidden element in the form, and you have the form go to that upload URL that we gave you. The user's browser is going to send that token and the video file up to our API server. We'll handle it, finish processing, and we'll respond with the redirect so that they'll go back to your site. And in that URL that we redirect to, we'll give you the information you need to know what happened. So the ID of the video, the status of the processing. So I want to do an example, and rather than using my ugly developer-built site, I was going to show an example of Dogbook, which is a Facebook application that uses our API to support video uploading. You can see down here, assuming the network connection is going to work for me, I've got a couple videos I already uploaded, but let's say I want to add another video of my dog. So here's that first step. They're going to ask me for some metadata. So I'm going to say this is Deuce at the beach. We'll do some simple data. Now I'm going to say my video is not on YouTube. I want to upload it to YouTube as part of this process. So it's going to show up on Dogbook, and it's going to show up on YouTube. Now when I go to step 2, this is where they're making the call to our API server. They took that metadata. They may have adjusted it. Actually, forgot about this step. So for AuthSub, as I mentioned, when an application wants to access my account, the user has to grant permission. In this case, you can actually see, because upload only requires one API call, they use that one-time token. Users may find this a little more comforting if they know that that site can only use one operation for them. But you could use a session token, which would allow me to upload multiple videos without going through this prompt every time. So I'm going to say, yes, allow Dogbook access. And now is where they're talking to that API. So they're uploading that metadata, the title, the description, their developer tags. And now if I were to look at this form, you'd see that that token is embedded in this form, and the target is going to go to that upload URL. So I'm going to pick my video, try to find a small one here, since the connection's a little slow. And I'm going to say upload. Now, if you look down at the bottom, you can see sending request to uploads.gdata. This is not going to Dogbook servers. This is not going to Facebook. The file itself goes straight to us. Again, no bandwidth costs on behalf of the application. The connection's a little bit slow, so while this is uploading, I'll kind of show you to prove what's going on. I've got my YouTube video site. This is videos I've previously uploaded. You can see the last one I did at 12:30. This was my test run. If we go back, still uploading. Maybe we'll let that run for a second. Oh, so now we're waiting. The upload is finished. The API servers are processing the data that's come in. And in a moment, it's going to finish, and it's going to return me a redirect back to Dogbook. There we go. So now that redirect has occurred. I reload Dogbook. You can see in this case, they haven't actually updated to look at the status of the video. They're just showing it. The video is still being processed, so there's no thumbnail. If I go back to my YouTube account and I look at my videos page, you can see I had this new video, uploaded 117 just now. The status is processing. And as I mentioned, when the user's logged in, you can actually get that same state. You can see that this video is still being processed. So it'll take a little bit of time for YouTube to process it. I'll come back and show you that that did actually work and that that video is live. So to kind of show you the actual request going on as part of this, the numbers correspond to that graph if you have photographic memory. So the first interesting step is their website posting metadata to our API servers. So they may have specified developer tags. I'm not actually sure if Dogbook has done that. And the response to that is going to have two relevant elements. It's going to have a URL, which is where the upload should go to, and that token, which is basically just a blob of data. You don't need to look into it. They're going to show a second step upload form. The action is going to be that URL that we told them. The next URL is where we should redirect back when the upload is complete. And you can see there's that hidden element, which is the token we gave them with the encrypted data. Once the user submits that form to us, we're going to process it, redirect them back to their site. And you see there's URL parameters in there to say what the status was, 200 means OK, and what the YouTube video ID was. So we could actually take that ID, provide a link to the YouTube watch page, or when you're actually, if you're looking at the user uploads feed, if a video is still being processed, there is no watch page. You can't watch it yet. But we will give you a link to the page where they can edit information about that video. Basically the same page that we were looking at right here, if I want to edit this. So we do give you sort of detailed status and access to the video as it's being processed. Now, as I mentioned, a video that's being processed is not public, so it's not going to show up in any public feeds. If you want to retrieve that video to see how processing is going and check on the status, you can retrieve from the user uploads feed when you're using that OSUB token, so the user is signed in. The simplest way to do this is to actually just get that one video. We gave you the ID already, and you can retrieve it. And you want to look for the app draft tag, which is going to say that this video is not actually published yet. It's still being processed. Alternately, the state there, instead of processing, could be rejected or failed. So a video can be rejected for a variety of reasons. The most common, and especially you as a developer when you're testing, is that if you upload the exact same video over and over again, we reject duplicate videos. So that's one thing to watch out for when you're testing. And finally, it could have failed. So it may not have been a video, or we may not have been able to process it for the site. If you're fetching their entire set of user uploads, you'll see these draft tags in any videos that are still being processed or not live. So we put our developer tags in, and then how do we actually use them to get information back out? As we said, developer tags are simply another type of category, and you can use the standard Google data syntax for searching within a category. So you put the category scheme in curly braces, and then the category name. In this case, the category name is whatever tag you specified. So say I want to do a search for videos that were uploaded through my site by my user, John. I can say search within the videos feed. This is actually one line. I had to break it up to fit. But you would put in the developer category and the tag. And as I mentioned, these tags are only available to you as the developer. So you have to provide us with your developer key in order to search based on developer tag. So to give you an example, if we go back to my less pretty site, say I want to list all of the API uploads that I have. You can see we've got a small handful. And if I search, say I search for sample, if I search on YouTube as a whole, I'm going to get a lot of videos. But say I want to search only sample videos uploaded on my site, I'm going to get just those couple videos. And in this case, on my demo site here, I associate the username with every video that gets uploaded. So I can say I only want to search for sample videos that I uploaded, John, on this site. And you see there's only going to be that one. Just to show you that things are working, let's double check on our Dogbook video. So you can see it's live. The thumbnails are still coming. But if I watch it, here's that video that I just uploaded. And if I go back to Dogbook, although the thumbnail's still coming in, let's see if they load here. There we go. So the thumbnails are there now. I can click on this video, and I can watch it. They use the embedded player to show it in place on their site. It's a lot prettier than my developer example. So that's kind of the end of the talk. I want to point you at a couple references. The Google Data API documentation, and as I mentioned, there are a number of Google Data API talks at the conference. Our API documentation for the YouTube API is on code.google.com, and we have a forum that you can use if you have questions or want to discuss anything. Before we get to the Q&A, there's a couple bookkeeping things I want to bring up. One is don't forget to fill out the feedback forms so that we know how we're doing. If you didn't get lunch beforehand, lunch has been extended until 2:30 p.m. It'll be up on level 3. And then finally, if you have more questions, if you want to see more ways that people have used the YouTube API, we have a YouTube booth out on the second floor. And also, we're going to be having a YouTube-specific Developer Day coming up, and you can get more information about our YouTube Developer Day at the booth. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. Jeff has YouTube thumb drives that will go to anybody who has a question. Yes?
My question is, when you show the example of searching on a developer tag, it looked like you were using a URL extension that had video schemas 2007. Could you give an example of where to find that format?
Yeah, so the question is, where would I've kind of elided what the schema is for the category. I can actually bring up the real code here. I had to cheat a little bit since I couldn't fit everything into the slide. So I'm going to bring up my API demo and API uploads. OK. So here's my function. Can you read this OK? OK. My function for fetching API uploads, what I really want is, so you can see here, get API uploads with the tag uploaded. This is just a way for me to identify everything I upload on my site. Further down, I can actually specify additional tags if I wanted to do by name. If I look at my server code for that, it's going to be up here. So the developer tag category format on the slide, I don't have it URL encoded because it takes up too much space. It's a little bit the other way when you do Python because you have to do the extra percents. But it's going to be all of our schemas for YouTube-specific data is on gdata.youtube.com, schemas 2007, and then whatever the schema is. All of this will be on the code site documentation. But basically, this is the up to here is that squiggle brace in the schema, and then I simply append whatever the tag is. That's that last format. So if I do, you can see how we use it down here. I take the search path, so searching with it by developer tag is still a search. I use the standard Google Data category specifier, and then I specify that developer tag schema, and then whatever the developer tag was that I wanted to query for. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
We can kind of do a bit more detailed code walkthrough like at the booth if you want.
Yeah, the only part I didn't answer was I haven't seen the schemas called out directly in the API on the website. Can you show me where to look?
Like in the documentation? Oh yeah, let's we can bring that up. So here's the YouTube documentation and sending developer tags. Perhaps I'm not quite understanding. This URL is simply an identifier for the schema. There's not actually contents there, if that makes sense. If you have more questions, we can kind of follow up afterwards. In the black shirt.
Okay, regarding security, as far as the authentication token, is that tied to, if I created the security token, would that be tied to my domain, or if the token was lost somewhere or given away along the way, would somebody else be able to test that?
Right, so the question is around security of the authentication tokens. So auth sub tokens, they're tied to the user, and they're tied to that scope of APIs that they apply to. But if that token was intercepted, it would be usable by somebody else, which is why you do need to take care with it. And that's why we have secure, the secure auth sub, which actually means that it's signed and only your site is able to make requests with it. That's also why those tokens are revocable. So the user, if they think it's being abused, they can go to a management page. So if we go to YouTube, let's look at my account. I could actually go and revoke that permission. So authorized sites, you can see I have a couple different tokens I've issued for my demo site.
Okay, and then if you change your password or
The question is, if you change your password, does that invalidate the tokens? I can't recall. I don't think it does for the auth tokens. I believe it does do it for client login. Those client login tokens are always temporary, so they could expire pretty much arbitrarily. And the blue shirt up front.
So, say you have a video that has several segments to it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to look inside that video and extract out frames? Do we do a lot of thumbnails?
So the question is, if you have a video that has multiple segments, is there a way to dig inside the video and perhaps extract multiple thumbnails from it? Right now, we don't enable you to do that. We do provide you the thumbnails that we generate. So right now, those tend to be evenly spaced at 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4. But we don't give you direct access to the video itself yet. That is something we're trying to figure out how to do, but there's a balance between making sure that the content is treated the way that the uploader wants that content to be treated. On the left.
Is it possible to upload a video going through the redirection through Flash UI or something with Progress Bar?
The question is if it's possible to upload the video without going through redirection. We are looking at kind of simplifying the process even further, so perhaps having like a Flash widget that you could just drop on your site and allow users to upload. But at the moment, we don't have that. So you would need to go through the browser.
Well, if you're just doing standard posts and then just choosing not to follow the redirect,
Right.
is there a specific status code they get returned for success and failure?
Well, the issue is that you don't really have a choice when you do the post. Like, there's no way to post without navigating the browser. So through Flash, yeah, you could. I don't know what Flash is going to do with the redirect that we return when you make that post. The redirect, your target of that redirect has the status code and the video ID in it. So if you were able to parse those out of the 303 or 302 that gets returned on completion, then that should work. I think what will happen, though, is that Flash will attempt to fetch the result of that. But that's a good point. I should make a note that maybe we add a mode where we don't actually issue a redirect. We just return response, so that if you don't want the browser to handle it, we can do that. Sorry? Yeah, it would just be a way to tell us you don't want to redirect at the end of processing. Okay. Yeah. So right now the status code would only be in the redirect, so we'd have to change it so that if we don't redirect, we return it in the response body. In the back.
I work with the government, and a lot of the stuff we do requires 508 compliance. Are you guys going to add like a layer for captions or anything like that?
Captions is a strongly requested feature for the site, and that's something that we are looking at. And then typically within the API, we tend to lag a little bit behind the site so that they kind of work out all the kinks, and then it's stable by the time it gets into the API. But captions and subtitles are very important to us. Over on the right.
Yeah, I'm mainly using Flex right now as part of my application with YouTube API. I'm running into serious security set-off issues all the time. Is there any way that either Google or YouTube update the cross-domain files and all that?
The cross-domain files should allow access from any domain at this point. When we sort of launched all of the write and upload APIs in March, about then was when we added our cross-domain files. I'm not sure if we had done our own test with ActionScript 3 or not. If you can follow up, maybe swing by the booth. Actually, one of our Flash experts is here at the conference, and we can kind of talk through and figure out what's going on. It should work, but it's possible there's a bug. Sorry? Right now, the value of YouTube is that everything comes into the YouTube community, and so we still do, brand the video as YouTube. We do still have the watermark in the player. So the idea is that this is not, we're not strictly a hosting platform. We're enabling you to extend YouTube onto your site rather than sort of rebrand.
So when you do the Flex
Uh, Correct. Yeah, so what we have done is we have, in fact, Jeff Stearns has a talk at the conference about our player APIs and our Chromeless player. So that was a common request that people wanted to be able to build their own UI around the player, but it's important for us that we control the actual streaming and display of the video so that we can apply all of the restrictions and permissions and everything the uploader has specified. So it's very important to us to respect their rights. So we do give you the Chromeless player so that you can build your own UI around that, but still allow us to control the streaming. Pulling videos directly from our servers is not supported and likely to break frequently. So we're out of time. As I mentioned, there's a YouTube booth out on the Miranda or mezzanine, and you can come talk to us with any more questions. Thank you.